Hello, welcome to my channel, and to my subscribers, welcome back. Today we will be making homemade corn dogs, similar to what you can get at the State Fair or even Disney World. And I was never a fan of corn dogs, but ever since trying this homemade recipe, I can't get enough of them. And we'll get right into it. So in my hand, you will see bamboo sticks. These bamboo sticks are 8 inches long, and I purchased them from Michael's. You can also order them online from Walmart. And if you have trouble finding these bamboo sticks, you can also use popsicle sticks as a substitute. And you can also use skewers, but that should be a last resort for a few reasons. One, skewers are wooden, so there's a heightened risk of splinters. Number two, skewers tend to have pointy ends, so there's the heightened risk of sticking yourself with them. But also, skewers tend to be thinner, so when you insert them into the hot dog and then they have that heavy breading on top of them, that will make it difficult to keep a firm grip on the corn dog. So you can use the skewers, but I would say it should be a last resort if you can't find popsicle sticks or bamboo sticks, especially if you're going to be serving these to children. And also off screen, before filming the video, I did rinse off the hot dogs to get rid of all of those juices that they were stewing inside the package, and I also patted them dry. The reason I patted the hot dogs dry is later on when we dip the hot dogs into the batter will have an easier time adhering to the hot dogs since they'll be dry. You don't want to dip wet hot dogs into the batter because then the batter won't stick well to the hot dogs. And I just finished inserting all of the bamboo sticks into most of the hot dogs. I'm working on the last hot dog now, and as you can see, I am taking my time with this, and I advise you do the same because you want to be sure that you get that bamboo stick all the way through the hot dog, but you don't want to move too quickly because if you do, you risk puncturing the bamboo stick all the way through the hot dog. You don't want to push it through too far because then you'll have the bamboo stick sticking out of the other end, and you don't want to risk the bamboo stick coming out the side of the hot dog either. So please take your time during this step. Alright, so we're done inserting the bamboo sticks into the hot dog. So now we're going to make our batter. So I have an 8-quart mixing bowl here. I'm adding 1 cup of self-rising flour, as well as 1 cup of yellow cornmeal self-rising, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. That'll give the breading a nutty flavor. And now I'm going to whisk all of the dry ingredients until they're well combined. And once we're done whisking the dry ingredients together, we're going to move on to our wet ingredients. So I'm going to add 1 extra large egg. This is to help bind all of the ingredients for the batter. And I'm using my spoon right now to break up the yolk so we'll have an easier time mixing it. I'm going to add 1 cup of whole milk to the batter. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stir everything until the wet and dry ingredients are combined. And for this part, I'm using a spoon. A whisk isn't necessary for this part. And now that we've done that, we're going to add our last ingredient, which is 1/4 of a cup of honey. This will give it a bit of sweetness. I'm going to get every last drop of that honey in there, and then we're going to stir in the honey until it's well combined. Alright, and there is our batter. Now it's done, and that's exactly how your batter should look once you mix everything together. It should be thick, but not so thick that you can't dip the hot dogs into it, but that's the exact texture that you want, that you see on the screen there. Alright, so we're going to set that batter aside. And now we're going to warm up our grease. I chose to use canola oil for this video, but you can use any neutral tasting oil, and that includes vegetable oil, peanut oil, anything that has a high smoke point. And we're going to warm up the grease until it reaches a temperature of 350 degrees. And I advise checking this with the thermometer as you see on the screen. And by the way, the grease, you should fill up the pot until it's between 2/3 and 3/4 of the way full. And now I'm dipping the hot dog into the batter, and you want to make sure that it's fully coated to the point that you can barely even see the hot dog as shown on the screen. And now we're going to dip the hot dogs into the batter, and you don't want to overcrowd the hot dogs, so you want to add maybe 2, 3 at the most at a time. And when you insert the hot dogs into the pot, you want to ensure that you're inserting them with the hot dogs facing downward into the grease. By the way, we just saw a chemical reaction happen live and in living color. So once those hot dogs were placed into the grease, the heat immediately activated the baking powder in both the self-rising flour and self-rising cornmeal. And once that baking powder was activated, it is decomposed, and once it's decomposed, it releases carbon dioxide, which is what allows for the corn dog breading you see to blossom. And now that breading is blossomed, we're just waiting for it to reach the golden brown color that is typical of a corn dog. And depending on if you're using a gas stove, a deep fryer, or an electric stove, it can take up to 3 minutes. And once it reaches the point where it's golden brown, as you see on the screen, you can remove the hot dogs, or the corn dogs rather, from the heat. And I'm using a tongs to do so. And you want to be careful when removing it, because grease will be dripping everywhere. And before you place any more hot dogs into the grease, you want to ensure that it is up to temperature. You want to ensure that the temperature of the grease is at 350 degrees. The temperature may drop a bit when you're adding corn dogs, so you want to wait a little bit to ensure that it's up to temperature, which it is now. So we're going to repeat all the steps again. Place the corn dogs into the grease, and wait until they become golden brown, and then remove them carefully. And again, you're just going to repeat these steps until all of the hot dogs are used up and all of the batter is gone. And we're going to get that last corn dog out of there and place it onto our plate. And there you have it. Corn dogs are ready to serve. And one last thing, there are some recipes that call for boiling your hot dog before dipping and frying them. I recommend against that. The hot dogs that you buy in the package from the grocery store, they are pre-cooked. All you're really doing when you boil them is you're drying them out, which makes the flavor and the texture worse. So I do advise against it. Boiling the hot dogs is not necessary. And once they're done, you can top them with a condiment of your choice. You can top them with mustard, ketchup, or whatever condiments you prefer. Finally, as far as serving sizes, this recipe can accommodate 1 packet with 8 hot dogs. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to see more of these recipes, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.